I used to be a massive perfectionist. And I think that perfectionism is one of the negative social conditionings that affect us, right? We're talking a lot about negative social conditioning, but I think very rarely do we pinpoint what that means. What are negative social conditionings? Who wants to list some of them? I'd say the big one, addictive need to judge and be judged. I'd say another one, dualism, aka black and white thinking, right? The thinking of society is very dualistic. It's off or on, up or down, right or left, right or wrong, black or white, direct or indirect, vibe versus horizontal plot development, playfulness versus seriousness, energy versus repose, discipline versus freedom, who am I versus what can I become. This will screw you up a lot. You got to start to look at nuance. Remember, anytime you're faced with one of those kind of seeming opposites, you got to reconcile them, because remember, the greatest point of vitality along a spectrum of energy is through the interaction of the poles. So you got to find a way to blend those two. What's another one? Confusion. Society wants people to be confused. There's nobody more easily controlled than a confused person, because they spend all their time trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and it doesn't leave a lot of time left for taking much action. What's another one? Frozen feelings. Men in particular seem to be, at least, it's never wise to indulge generalizations, but men in particular seem to be very good at hiding emotions, perhaps because they're conditioned from an early age to not show them. But in general, I think people are just conditioned to not show much emotion. The quality of the emotion is not an issue. It doesn't matter. Happiness, sadness, anger, it must be carefully hidden. It must be controlled. It's threatening to the system. Negativism. The need to pick apart and destroy logically anything that is presented. By the way, it's kind of funny. Julian was broadcasting on TikTok yesterday, and I was watching that TikTok stream. And you should have read what do you think the comments said? Because, by the way, TikTok, that's a completely cold audience. Okay, it's literally, the algorithm is just showing it to random people who know nothing about this. So the comments are uniformly all derogatory comments about his physical appearance, big forehead. It looks like he's fighting his haircut. It looks like this guy doesn't shower. Take those fucking glasses off. He's talking to 3 people. He's talking a lot but saying nothing. And at the time that I tuned in, he was literally talking about how attention spans are shit. The comments are proving what he's talking about. But again, they just want to tear it the fuck down. That's why I have to say, never read the comments, right? Unfortunately, as YouTube professionals, I'm a YouTube professional. You kind of have to, because for engagement purposes, it's psychologically damaging until you learn to kind of defend against that. But yeah, negativism, in academia, it's in general. What else? We talked about, abdication of responsibility and blame. You want to blame everyone else for your problems. We all do. You don't want to take responsibility, because if you are responsible, then it stands to reason you're also to blame, doesn't it? So, look, this may or may not be true. Bad things do happen to good people for no reason. I'm not dismissing that. But generally, my sort of philosophy is whatever bad things happen to me, I have to take responsibility for it. It might be unfair. These people are treating me unfairly. I believe that it's whatever. What am I going to do about it? They're not going to change. What the fuck am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? Do that. Right? Addicts in general are really, they avoid taking responsibility for their lives. Eradicate blame, because it leads to defensiveness. when I give feedback on a program, I try to couch it in terms of descriptions as opposed to critical, criticisms. I'm not like, what you're doing is wrong, even though it kind of is. I'm like, I notice you're making a choice to be inexpressive in the face. Why is that? Like Tucker Carlson. Why is that? AOC and the Democrats want you to be, why is that? But I'm essentially telling them wrong. So defensiveness, it's a huge part of our culture. The greater the defensiveness, though, the less the learning. Rationalization is a major tool of defensiveness as well. Rationalization, we talk about that. And being rational is good a lot of the time. But it's also not good. What does the word rationalization mean? It's like a pejorative term used to describe faulty logic that leads us to bad decisions and things like that. So I get a lot of people, especially older guys who come on a program, and they have done a lot of mental gymnastics to defend the way that they're acting as proactive decisions. Like, well, no, I act like this because X, Y, Z. And again, these are often smart people, and sometimes they've been thinking about this for so long and refining the line of reasoning that it makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, that makes sense, but again, let's get a clear-eyed understanding and acceptance of the demands that are going to be put upon you by the types of results you want to have. So perhaps I would encourage you to try what I'm suggesting. I mean, you came here, right? And then, hopefully they try it. Negativism, responsibility, dependency, looking to other people to solve your problems. Dishonesty. Now, there's 3 levels of lying, right? There's lying to yourself, lying to other people, and lying to the world at large. What does that mean? Everything's fine. Like that meme with the dog sitting in the burning room. This is fine. The vast majority of people, y'all are here. So you're like, okay, look, I'm taking some responsibility for the fact that I'm not necessarily getting the results I want in my life in some areas. Okay, let's investigate ways to kind of look into some strategies. Maybe I can improve that. Vast majority of people are doing what? It's fine. Everything's fine. This is why, look at the ridicule that is given to self-development in general. Dude, do you think that most people look at Anthony Robbins? Do you think that Anthony Robbins is a good guy in general? Do you think that he means well for society? I believe that he means well. He also makes a shit ton of money. That's great too. But I think he truly wants to help humanity. And I think that his teachings have helped me tremendously growing up and still continue to do so. People hate that dude. People fucking hate that guy. Charlatan, scam artist, grifter. Because why? Why is this?
It's causing them to address their own shortcomings.
Right. Well, because to acknowledge that maybe his teachings have merit would be to essentially acknowledge that they could be doing some self-improvement as well. Right? Everything's fine. Everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. Any other ones? Let's see, confusion, we talked about that. I got a big list of these here. Oh, yes. Scarcity. Self-centeredness and scarcity. Got to get mine. There's not enough to go around. Zero-sum model. If somebody else is getting it, they're taking away from my potential pile. Jealousy, all of these conditionings tend to reinforce each other, right? And then, of course, at the bottom, we got another one, more germane to what we're discussing now, perfectionism. Now, for me, this has historically been a problem, right? Nothing is good enough. You aren't good enough. It's never good enough. But ironically, the very effort to be perfect contains within it the interference that blocks the movement towards perfection, even though such a thing doesn't actually exist in reality. So the dynamic of the blocking pattern is quite simple. We function best when our energies are focused on the present, but what perfectionism is doing, it's setting up this overly specific future goal that can never be attained. And so basically, the present process has to be constantly compared to see if you're getting closer to it. And as we've seen, judging in process is antithetical to best result. In fact, Ibrahim was talking about that when I walked in. This obviously, it's not helping. Basically, you're draining energy from the present to either serve the imaginary future or the dead past. Basically, you assume perfection is possible, so mistakes are unacceptable. You can't learn, you can't grow from mistakes, so you hide them, you cover them up, pretend you never made any, or in the case of some of these students, you defend them as choices. Perfectionism intensifies shame, it intensifies hopelessness, makes you give up. One really simple but very kind of impactful book that I read recently about this whole making things harder than they are. Anyone read that? It's called Atomic Habits. Another one, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. In that habits book, there was an anecdote. I forget who the author is, but he talks about James Clear? Okay, James Clear. So he talks about, he gives an anecdote of a photography class. And the professor, at the beginning of the semester, he says, okay, look, the grading system is going to be as follows. This half of the class, you are going to be graded on the quality of one photograph that you submit at the end of the semester. The higher the quality of that photograph, the better your grade. Y'all on this side, you're going to be graded on the quantity of photographs submitted. You submit 100 photographs, you get an A, 90, you get a B. Quality doesn't matter, it's just how many you turn in. So at the end of the semester, an interesting thing happened. He noticed the quality of the photographs submitted by the quantity group was much higher than the so-called quality group. Why do you think that was? They just did more iterations. They're like going through those, okay, I'm gonna try to experiment with different exposures. I'm gonna experiment with different composition. I'm gonna experiment with different techniques and artistic styles. Like they just said, they just went through all these different iterations, and eventually they put the reps in that permitted them to consistently have more quality. So like for me, I used to do things like I would have to plan the content out. I'm gonna shoot a video. Okay, I need to plan all the content out. I want to include everything. I want to make sure I don't miss any vital component to this video. So when I do put the video out, it's really polished, it's really sharp. Right? I'm going to go, another one, I'm going to go live. Oh, I can't go live. My hair isn't combed. Like I guess I'm vain like that. Like my hair doesn't look as good. I just woke up. I kind of look like shit. Oh, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. Now, I'm just like, I don't give a shit. Like, just go. Like, literally, the best thing that I did in recently to combat this, I have a room in my house that I just dedicated as a studio. So I don't have to set the lights up. I don't have to set they're all ready. I just walk in there, I hit a switch, all the lights come on, I sit down, I hit record, and it's going out. Remove as much friction as possible. And I'm like, who gives a shit if I look cool? Like, just sit down and go. Sit down and go. These speeches here, I used to meticulously plan. I'd have all these PowerPoint. I'm just like, just go. You've been doing this 20 years, dude. Do you really need a damn speech? You've been reiterating these concepts over and over on a daily basis for 20 years. I have an encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. Anything you ask me, I will be able to answer to your satisfaction most likely. And it will be actionable. It'll make sense. Just show up. Just go where they tell you to go. Show up, start talking. So again, ditch this perfectionism. This is probably the best advice I can give you right here, right now. Ditch the perfectionism. It doesn't need to be good. Just do massive action. That's it. Take massive action. And very often what I found in my experience, since I've started going off the cuff, it's just as good, if not better. Now, to be fair, if I am going over something extremely technical and I want to make sure that I don't forget any little detail, I will occasionally still write something out. And if it's new content that I'm kind of Workshopping, I'll have an outline, I'll kind of refer to it and stuff like that. But generally, I found that it's just as good, if not better, because it's got a living energy to it, as opposed to like reading off a teleprompter or reading off notes. That living energy is very often going to be more compelling. It's going to capture attention better. But again, I think that we use this rationalization of perfectionism to avoid, oh, I got to go up. If I get rejected, who gives a shit? Just get your reps in. That's all that matters. Get your reps in. To build any sort of skill, you need repetition and you need practice. That is paramount. That is absolutely paramount. The amount of time that you spend doesn't matter, but the reps and the practice are what matter. And this is why professionals, this is a Pressfield thing, they stick to a schedule. Professionals stick to a schedule, even when they don't feel like it. Always show up, even on a bad day. Like sometimes, like I was talking a bit about this the other day, I go to the gym, I'm not like feeling well, kind of fatigued, like a little down in the dumps. I go anyway. I do a shit workout, go home. Who cares? I showed up. Very often you'll get there and you'll get there, and even though you kind of feel bad, once you get into the swing of it, now you come alive. You kind of catch a second wind, and then you're good to go. Yes.
How would you compare like a shit workout to like a shit night out?
Shit night out, you don't feel it, nothing's hitting. Everyone's like, oh, sorry, I gotta go, my friends, gotta go home, no thank you. You gotta show up, right? In fact, the bad nights out are the best. Why? Because they're reinforcing in your head that you are that person. And furthermore, it's maintaining the compounding results. Lost days hurt more than successful days help. This program is designed to give you a process to open and sustain charismatic expression with increasing consistency. Remove the obstacles, isolate the skills, exercise them separately, then put them together in a more completely realized whole. How to speak to all the issues surrounding this interrelationship between intuitive and intellectual resources is arguably the most fundamental challenge facing anyone who's attempting to improve their communication skills.
So if you're looking to develop general charisma that you can apply across all areas of life, definitely check out Jeff's Charisma Mastery.